Dear Kirk Pendergrass. December 6, 2019 by Anna von Reitz. Let me point something out to you. Nothing in federal code pertains to the states and people except those few portions of legislation published in the Federal Record, not the Federal Register, and only those portions published in the Congressional Record that are in alignment with the original intent of the constitutions are valid. That means about 8% of all the acts of Congress have portions that apply to actual Americans, and of those, about half, are either contrary to the original intent or otherwise invalid from the get-go. Title 42 says virtually nothing about the actual states or people. It concerns itself with British Territorial Government operations and United States citizens and issues that don't pertain to any Joe average American. It's all well and good, what you are doing, but it still only pertains properly to Territorial United States citizens, that is, to legal persons, not people. And why are we bothering to fight that fight? It would seem that only a rather small percentage of Americans would ever need to do such a thing. Attorneys, doctors, dentists, pilots, and certain other licensed professions that have been illegally and immorally conscripted under color of law, are about the only ones impacted. I am not suggesting that we leave these Americans to their fate, merely that the point is a legal conscription of civilian assets all across the board, not a case-by-case campaign to obtain redress from foreign British territorial state legislatures that shouldn't even be in operation on our shores. These are our subcontractors and employees. We don't petition them. We don't seek redress from their legislatures. We kick them in the rump for insubordination and return their legislation to them for repeal or correction. There is an entire living government of the people, for the people, and by the people that exists outside of and beyond the federal subcontractors and their agencies and operations, a whole other jurisdiction that belongs only to the states and people of this country, and which is foreign with respect to both the United States territorial citizens and municipal citizens of the United States. And our subcontractors operating under our delegated powers, the Queen and the Pope, both know it. How is it that so many other worthy people, including yourself, are caught up and confused about who we are and what we are owed and what the actual proper action is? I understand that Field may have elected to retain U.S. citizenship as a result of his own situation, but that leaves him in a different political status, not the normal political status Americans are heir to and which at least 90% of us should be exercising. If he had corrected his political status prior to all this happening, he wouldn't be in any federal jurisdiction and would not be considered any subject matter for them to arrest and impound, either. Redressing his grievances in the legislature is part and parcel of accepting territorial United States citizenship, and most Americans have no rational reason in the world to accept such a foreign and subordinate political status. The living people and lawful persons of this country are not subject to statute. As the name implies, statutory entities, that is, legal fiction entities, are subject to statute because they are created by statute. Are we created by any form of statute? My parents would disagree. The actual people, that is, the lawful persons who are state citizens, retain the right to directly nullify any legislative act, code, or regulation derived from legislation. Our courts can directly overturn any legislation via jury nullification. No petitioning to any executive officer getting a paycheck from us. No redress sought from the criminals in the various territorial and municipal legislatures. Just flat-out average people operating in their proper political status and organizing their own state and local county assemblies have the power to overturn whatever criminal or civil statutes these roaches offer to presume upon us while pretending to represent us. Pray tell, why would we need someone to represent us when we are present ourselves? This curious concept of representation is made necessary only by constructive fraud and impersonation being practiced against us by members of the bar associations, which are, as you have begun to uncover, illegal guilds, trade unions. A bar card is a guild card as a union card. The bars, both the so-called American Bar Association and the U.S. Bar Association, have been operating what appear to be our courts as closed union shops, and the municipal courts have been operating in violation of federal code, and they get away with it because they don't operate under territorial federal code, they operate under their own municipal code which nobody hardly references. So these foreign interlopers have both been sitting dry-docked on our shores, both impersonating us, with the municipal court operating in flagrant violation of the Smith Act and Taft-Hartley Act, both. They, the bar associations and the courts they are operating, all need to be busted as criminal enterprises, undeclared foreign agents engaged in racketeering, coercion, identity theft, human trafficking, impersonation, barratry, and more on our shores. Any legislation repugnant to the Constitution, to the spirit and intent of our public law, our Declaration of Independence, or our moral sense, needs to get tossed out the door in our courts without a backward nod to the Congresses or the foreign state of state legislatures. And that is why the perpetrators of the Great Fraud have tried for so long to suppress us and suppress our land and soil jurisdiction courts, ever since the Civil War. These animals literally steal our identities as Americans and impersonate us while we are still babies in our cradles, then lie to and extort us into adhesion contracts as youths, and illegally tax and mortgage us to death as adults. I see no reason for us, Americans, to pander to nor to seek redress from their foreign legislatures. I see reason to fire the whole lot of them and subject them to the actual public law of this country and the actual international law of the Admiralty. Why bother getting involved in some internecine one-by-one brush fire contest with these buggers, grinding our way through due process and seeking redress from their foreign legislatures? Why not attack the issue of their unlawful and illegal conscription and press ganging of Americans into their jurisdiction in the first place, which is at the root of all these problems and issues, including those suffered by licensed professionals? Why not address them in Admiralty and bust them for genocide on paper and human trafficking of American babies in violation of both the Hague and Geneva Conventions? Where is Quantico when we need them? Forgot who we are? Forgot who they actually work for? Everyone needs to get a move on and start striking at the roots, not the leaves and branches. We need to kick their rumps back into the sea where they belong, liquidate their corporations as criminal operations, and seize upon every asset that they think they own. We need to bust up their monopolies, including the media circus and bar associations, and rip and tear through them like so much frozen butter in the face of some very hot knives. Of course, I support any and every effort to put an end to the criminality by any means and in whatever venue. I do. But fighting the brush fires is not really the point. Nailing the arsonists flat to the floor is the point. Help support this work by visiting www.annavonreitz.com and look for the donate button. Links to this article and more can be found in the video description box.